We all voted. Thanksgiving is at your cabin this year, my cousin texted. Make sure there are enough beds for 26 people. I had no clue this was ever talked about. I texted back, no way. She sent a winking emoji, too late, we're already on the road. I called a locksmith and a tow truck. When they showed up, the driveway was locked with chains. And their cars were gone within the hour. My phone buzzed, and a single text message instantly shattered the peace I'd worked years to build. My family was coming, uninvited, and what happened next would change everything. I was halfway through a bland turkey sandwich at my desk, the cursor blinking mockingly on a spreadsheet I absolutely dreaded finishing. It was a Tuesday, just like any other, until that buzz. The text was from my cousin, Chloe. We all voted. Thanksgiving's at your cabin this year. Make sure there's enough beds for 26 people. 26 people. At my cabin. I stared at the screen, rereading it, willing it to change. My thumb hovered, but I couldn't reply right away. I just leaned back, my phone feeling like a personal insult in my hand. See, I'm Daniel, 34, living in Colorado. I work in finance, not glamorous, I know, but it's stable. 2 years ago, after saving forever, I bought this cabin. It's nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms tucked into the pines near Mount Shasta, a wraparound porch, and the kind of silence you can't get anywhere near I-25. It's my escape. My place to disconnect, to hike, to just drink coffee in peace without anyone asking when I'm going to settle down. My extended family? They're like a pack of wolves. A weird hierarchy, loads of entitlement, and somehow the loudest voices always win. I'm not close with most of them. My older brother, Ethan, is okay in small doses, and my parents split their time between Texas and Georgia, chasing good golf weather. But the rest, cousins, aunts, uncles, they're a chaotic mix of freeloaders and self-declared leaders who never ask. They just announce. Chloe, the one who sent that text, she's the unofficial queen bee. She's 39, married to Kevin, who sells wellness supplements and has been investigated twice by the authorities. Their 3 kids treat other people's homes like indoor playgrounds. Chloe has this way of making everything seem like a group decision when it's really just her deciding, then looping you in too late to say no. This wasn't her first stunt, but it was by far the boldest. I typed back, absolutely not. Her response came in under a minute, too late. We're already driving up. That emoji she used, the audacity. My jaw tightened. My hands shook slightly, the way they do when someone's entitlement is so blatant you can't even process it. Driving up to my property, without asking. A million thoughts raced through my head. There was no vote. No one reached out. I scrolled through the family group chat, which I usually muted, and saw a few vague messages from earlier that week. Chloe had floated the idea of a woodsy, cozy Thanksgiving, tagged a few people, and then a flurry of love this, from Brenda, her kids, and Ethan, who probably just wanted to avoid hosting. No one had asked me directly. And now, she was on her way with 25 other people. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I texted again, do not come to my cabin. I didn't agree to this. No reply. A few minutes later, a ping in the group chat, Chloe, yay. So excited for this weekend. Daniel's cabin is going to be perfect. That was it. No word to me, just a public announcement. And everyone started piling on, can't wait. We'll bring extra blankets. Shotgun the guest room. We'll be there Friday morning, Daniel. My stomach sank. I felt like I'd been volunteered for something vital without even being in the room. I typed, I never agreed to host Thanksgiving. Please do not come to my cabin. It is private property. Not a single response. Not one person acknowledged it. Then I saw Chloe typing. LOL, don't be dramatic. It's just a few days, and it'll be so fun. Family first. Family first. That was her favorite line, always deployed right after she'd taken advantage of someone or forgotten to pay her share. My heart was pounding. This wasn't even about Thanksgiving anymore. It was about the blatant disrespect. The way they thought they didn't need my permission. I checked my calendar. Tuesday. Thanksgiving in 2 days. I texted Ethan. Me, did you know about this? Ethan, yeah, they mentioned it. Figured you were cool with it. Me, I never agreed. Ethan, well, it's kind of too late now, isn't it? Too late. I stood up and paced my living room, ignoring another meeting invite buzzing on my laptop. All I could see was 26 people pulling up my gravel driveway, coolers, air mattresses, loud toddlers, treating my quiet sanctuary like a free Airbnb. And somehow, I was the bad guy for not being okay with it. It wasn't just disrespect. It felt like they didn't see me as a person with boundaries. I was just Daniel with the cabin, a resource to be used. I remembered Chloe at my parents' anniversary party, complaining about always hosting holidays, how no one ever offered. She'd cornered me, joking, "You should really open up that cabin of yours sometime. It's selfish to keep it all to yourself." I'd laughed it off, but now it felt less like a joke and more like a warning shot. And the worst part? They were really going to do it. Just barge in, expecting everything, because they always got away with it. Because no one had ever told them no. It was 2:14 p.m. If I left now, I could get to the cabin by sunset. My hand hovered over my car keys. They wanted drama? They were about to get it. And not the kind they could guilt-trip their way out of. I grabbed my coat, locked my apartment, and started driving. I had just enough time for one phone call before losing signal in the mountains. That call would change everything. By the time I pulled off the main road and onto the gravel path, the sun was melting behind the pines. The air grew sharp and cold, and the silence, that profound, clean silence that first drew me here, the one that felt like a reset button for my soul, now held a tight knot in my stomach. I parked, killed the engine, and just sat for a second, breathing. My phone had lost signal 20 minutes ago. No replies. Not that I expected them, but their silence just made it worse. It wasn't just the assumption they could take over my cabin, it was the total indifference to my voice. I wasn't a host. I was a placeholder. I stepped out, my boots crunching on the gravel, and looked up at my place. 2 bedrooms, a fire pit, a small loft I'd turned into a reading nook. I'd spent over a year fixing it up, patching the roof, staining the deck, replacing plumbing. It was mine. Not a family timeshare. Not a rental. Mine. I opened the door, flicked on the lights, and felt that familiar warmth. This place was where I came to not think, to sip bourbon by the fire. But tonight, that calm was invaded, tainted by the knowledge that in 48 hours, a parade of chaos would arrive. I checked the pantry. A few cans of soup, boxed pasta, coffee, whiskey. Definitely not stocked for 26 people. I was supposed to be with a friend in Denver for a quiet dinner this week. Board games. Nothing like this. My thoughts were cut short by the low crunch of tires on gravel. My heart dropped. Headlights. I looked out the window. It was Ethan. He stepped out, hoodie and jeans, looking completely unbothered, holding a coffee cup like he was just casually dropping by. He waved, like this was normal. "Figured you'd come up," he said, walking up the steps. "Knew you wouldn't take that text." Well, I didn't answer. I opened the door. "You seriously didn't know?" He shrugged. "Chloe mentioned it in the chat. Said she had a plan. Figured you'd be cool with it. She never asked me." No one did. He looked around, inspecting the place. "Come on, man. You never use this place for holidays. And it's not like you've got plans. She figured it'd be easier to just make the decision. Easier for who? He didn't answer. I watched him walk into the kitchen, open a cabinet, grab a glass like it was his own house. I'm not hosting Thanksgiving, I said, my voice firm. He gave me that half-amused, half-dismissive look. Well, technically, you are. It's already happening. People are on their way. Chloe's rented a van. Brenda's bringing folding tables. I think David's picking up 2 turkeys. Did anyone bring permission? Ethan sighed, leaning against the counter. Look, you're making this way bigger than it needs to be. It's family. It's a few days. Just let it happen. It's not worth the drama. I stared at him. Just let it happen. Like I was supposed to roll over for the sake of peace. Like boundaries were optional if it made things easier for them. He stayed for an hour, trying to talk me down, telling me I was too rigid, that I always overthink things, that this was an opportunity to connect. I didn't argue. I just nodded and said I'd think about it. He left assuming he'd won. But I wasn't thinking about caving. I was thinking about escalation. The next morning, I drove 40 minutes down the mountain to the nearest town. I spoke to a locksmith, explained I wanted all exterior locks changed, gave him the address. He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. By noon, everything was swapped. Then I called the tow company. Hypothetically, I asked, if someone parked on private property without permission, blocking a driveway, how fast could you be up here? The dispatcher didn't hesitate. Within the hour. Perfect. I picked up 2 thick chains and a heavy-duty padlock from the hardware store. By the time I got back, the cabin felt different. Not just physically, but emotionally. Like I'd finally drawn a line, like the house knew I was defending it. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. I just waited. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket, watching the trees sway in the wind. A hawk screeched. The air was so clean it hurt to breathe. I thought about what I'd say when they showed up, whether I'd even bother explaining. Around 10 p.m., my phone rang. Weak signal, but it was Chloe. I didn't answer. Voicemail. Another call. Then a text, hey, just wanted to confirm we're coming tomorrow morning around 11ish. Hope you're excited. No question mark. No, can we still come? Just blind confidence. A few minutes later, another text, we'll need space for 3 cars plus the rental van. Oh, and if you could make sure there's enough coffee and milk for breakfast, that'd be amazing. See you soon. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, the cold seeping into my fingers despite the blanket. My jaw clenched. There it was again, that relentless entitlement. The next morning, the messages picked up. 8:14 a.m., on our way. 8:27 a.m., ETA 10:48. 9:03 a.m., what's the gate code again? There was no gate code. Not anymore. At 9:30 a.m., I left the cabin and looped the thick chain around the bottom of my long driveway entrance, right where the gravel met the main road. I locked it tight. I posted a small wooden sign, private property. No trespassing. Vehicles will be towed. Then I waited. I made coffee. Turned on the fireplace. Sat by the window with a book I didn't read. At exactly 10:48 a.m., I saw the first car, a silver SUV, crawling slowly up the road. Then a white minivan. Then the actual rental van. They all rolled to a confused stop at the chained entrance. I saw them pointing, gesturing. A few car doors opened. I recognized Brenda's bright red coat. Someone tried honking. Then my phone rang. It was Chloe. This time, I answered. Hey, I said flatly. What the hell is this? She snapped. No emojis now. There's a chain across your driveway. We can't get in. I know. A pause. Well, take it down. We're here. No. You're not. Daniel, this isn't funny. We've got food, kids. We've been driving for hours. You weren't invited. You said absolutely not like a joke. Come on. No, Chloe. I meant it. You didn't ask. You just decided. She scoffed. It's Thanksgiving. You're really going to turn away your whole family over this? You turned yourselves away. I hung up. A minute later, she called again. I didn't answer. Then Ethan called. Then Brenda. I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb. At 11:20 a.m., a black tow truck rounded the corner, its yellow lights flashing through the trees. As it slowed to a stop behind the van, that's when everything really started to unravel. The tow truck's rumbling engine cut through the stillness like an alarm clock in a dream. I stood on the porch, hands in my pockets, watching from a distance as the driver stepped out, glanced at the chain, then looked at the knot of angry relatives clustered around their three vehicles. I saw Ethan walking toward the driver, arms raised, trying to wave him off. Chloe was on her phone, probably frantically calling me again. I didn't check. The driver ignored Ethan and turned toward me. I gave a single nod. He nodded back and got to work. The next few minutes unfolded like a movie. One of those slow, inevitable scenes where you know everything's about to blow up. The driver worked efficiently. He hooked the first car, Ethan's, while the others shouted from the road. I watched, a strange mix of detachment and satisfaction washing over me. But that satisfaction was short-lived, because the fallout didn't wait. I was still on the porch when my phone buzzed again and again. I finally turned off Do Not Disturb and let the messages flood in. Ethan, what the hell is wrong with you? Chloe, I hope you're proud of yourself. The kids are crying. We drove 4 hours. Brenda, Daniel, you're dead to this family. Chloe, your parents will hear about this. And they did. By the time the last car was towed and the dust settled, my mom was calling. My dad followed. Then my uncle. One after the other, a parade of disappointed sighs, scolding tones, and guilt-laced lectures. My mom's voice trembled when she said, "We raised you better than this." I didn't argue. I didn't try to explain. I just said, "You didn't raise me to be a doormat either." That didn't go over well. For the rest of Thanksgiving weekend, I stayed at the cabin alone. I chopped wood. Walked the trails. Sat on the deck, watching the wind move through the trees. The silence that once comforted me now felt a little heavier, like something had changed, not just how my family saw me, but how I saw them. The next week, back in the city, my inbox was full of snide messages and group chat threads. I'd been tagged in memes about ungrateful cousins, passive-aggressive photos of our family dinner without certain people, and one truly over-the-top post from Chloe, a half-eaten pie with the caption, missing a few ingredients, like basic human decency. I wanted to be unaffected, I really did. But it hit me harder than I expected. There's something uniquely painful about being the villain in your own family story. No matter how justified I felt, it didn't erase the weight of being excluded, misunderstood, talked about by people who shared my blood. I'd always known I was on the outskirts of the family. Never the favorite. But this was different. This was exile. I stopped checking the group chat, stopped replying to calls. Even Ethan, who tried to smooth things over a week later with a "you kind of overreacted, but I get it," got radio silence from me. In December, I skipped the family Christmas gathering. No gifts. No replies asking if I was coming. I stayed at the cabin, lit a fire, read and listened to music while snow piled up outside. It was peaceful, but it was also lonely. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the kind that comes from realizing the people who are supposed to care most don't actually see you at all. That winter, something shifted inside me. I started going to the cabin more often, not to escape, but to rebuild. I fixed the wobbly railing, repaired the broken window, added insulation. The work was slow, physical, satisfying. There was something deeply healing about using my hands, about creating something tangible that didn't depend on anyone's opinion or approval. In January, I found an old notebook. I started writing. At first, it was just scribbles, frustrations. But it became more: observations, reflections, memories. One night, I wrote a list titled Things I Never Said, and it turned into 10 pages of everything I'd swallowed over the years just to keep the peace. By February, I was journaling daily. It didn't fix everything, but it helped me understand myself, helped me see how long I'd let people push my boundaries because I thought that's what a good son or a good cousin did. It helped me realize that kindness doesn't mean self-erasure. Around that time, I started therapy. Something I'd meant to do for years. Now I had a reason and the space to unpack decades of quiet resentment. The first few sessions were hard. I'd find myself defending my family even as I described their behavior. My therapist, Sarah, gently challenged me. "Why is it your job to absorb the dysfunction?" she asked one day. I didn't have an answer, but I carried the question home, sat with it, let it echo. Work was steady. But something had changed in how I showed up. I was more focused, more decisive. I wasn't dragging my feet. I stopped people-pleasing my way through meetings. My manager noticed. I got invited to a lead role, then a quiet promotion. A raise, a new title. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. It felt like mine. In the spring, I bought a set of handmade kitchen knives. Learned to cook properly, not just bachelor meals, but real, thoughtful food. I hosted one quiet dinner for a friend from work, then another for a couple from my hiking group. Small, intimate evenings, nothing like the forced chaos of my childhood Thanksgivings. I started seeing the difference between chosen community and inherited obligation. The more I leaned into that life, the less I missed the old one. But the thing about family is, they never really stay gone. In late April, a certified letter arrived at my city apartment. Thick, stiff, from a law office that had handled my grandfather's estate years ago. I opened it cautiously, my heart thudding, like something was about to fall apart all over again. Inside was a notice. My great-uncle Arthur, an eccentric recluse from the coast, had passed away quietly. He left behind a surprisingly complex estate, a piece of land, a small trust, personal requests. And somehow, I was named one of the primary beneficiaries. Not Ethan. Not Chloe. Me. A meeting was scheduled in 2 weeks, in person. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. But I felt something stir in me. Not just curiosity, but a faint glimmer of possibility. Of leverage. See, Uncle Arthur may have been a recluse, but he wasn't blind. He'd shown up to fewer family events than I had. But when he did, he watched. He listened. He took mental notes. He once told me, in his usual dry tone, "People tell you who they are, Daniel. You just have to stop interrupting." And now, in death, he might be telling me something. Something the rest of the family wasn't going to like. I folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and placed it next to my journal. Whatever was coming next, I knew one thing: the days of staying quiet were over. The law office was quiet when I arrived. The kind of quiet that makes you wonder if you're even supposed to be there. The receptionist, with a flat smile, led me down a narrow hallway lined with faded lighthouse paintings. Everything felt like my great-uncle Arthur himself, understated, deliberate, unimpressed with modern nonsense. The estate attorney, Walter Kemp, in his early 60s, wore a gray three-piece suit and gold wire-frame glasses. He looked like someone who'd never once raised his voice, and never needed to. When he motioned for me to sit, I noticed there was only one chair across from his desk. Just one. No other family members here? I asked. Walter adjusted a thick manila folder. Per Mr. Reynolds' instructions, today's meeting is with you alone. That sent a jolt through me. I hadn't realized how much I'd braced myself for a confrontation. Chloe sniping, Ethan smoothing things over, Brenda sighing dramatically. But it was just me. Walter cleared his throat, opened the folder, and began reading portions of the will. Legal boilerplate, asset lists, dry language. Then he paused, turned a page, and glanced at me over his glasses. This section, he said, was handwritten. It overrides the standard inheritance structure, and it's legally binding. Would you like me to read it aloud? I nodded. To my great-nephew, Daniel, he began. I leave the seaside house and the trust attached to it for no reason other than this: you were the only one who ever visited without needing something. You never asked for money, never treated me like a stepping stone. I watched how you carried yourself when the others didn't think I was paying attention. You have more integrity in your silence than they have in their endless noise. Use this property however you see fit. Sell it. Keep it. Burn it down if you must, but know this: I gave it to you because you earned it, not because you were loud enough to demand it. I sat frozen. The words didn't feel real. Walter gave me a moment. Then he continued, the property includes 13.4 acres, the house, and a liquid trust worth $2.3 million. It is all in your name, effective immediately. There are no contingencies. It hit me in waves. First, the shock. Then the realization. And finally, the one that caught in my throat: this wasn't just an inheritance. It was validation. My life had just changed permanently. But the real shift? That was still coming. Because as soon as the rest of the family found out, they were going to implode. And this time, I wasn't going to shield them from the consequences. For the next week, I didn't say a word. I signed the paperwork. Met with a real estate attorney. I toured the property, a weathered, ivy-covered house overlooking the Pacific, perched on a quiet bluff just outside Newport Beach. It needed work, but it had good bones, and it radiated that same peaceful energy as the cabin. I moved quietly, methodically. I transferred the trust into a separate LLC under my name. Hired a contractor for evaluations. Updated title records. I followed every paper trail Arthur had left and turned them into armor. And then I waited. Because I knew what was coming. It started when Ethan texted me out of the blue. Ethan, hey, random question. Did you get something from Uncle Arthur's estate? I stared at the message. Not hope you're doing okay, or did you go to the memorial? Just straight to the point. Classic. Me, yes. 2 minutes later. Ethan, what did you get? Me, that's between me and the attorney. The silence that followed was louder than any text. 2 days later, Chloe emailed me. Not texted, emailed. Which told me she was in full professional mode, the same tone she used when trying to negotiate discounts from caterers she'd already trashed. Hi Daniel, I heard from a few family members that Uncle Arthur may have left some things behind. I wanted to kindly ask if you'd be open to sharing any information about the estate. I know he didn't have kids, and it would be really meaningful to the rest of us to have a piece of his legacy. I didn't respond. The next morning, another email, hi again. I just wanted to follow up because a few people are making plans around summer, and we were wondering if Uncle Arthur's place might be usable for a family getaway? Maybe something like a memorial celebration? Just brainstorming. That emoji. Always the emoji. I forwarded the email to my attorney. Then I drove to the cabin because I had a plan to finish. See, owning the seaside house was a gift, but it was also an opportunity. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't just want to cut myself off from the family. I wanted to redefine my role. I wanted to take everything they used to hold over me, the guilt, the obligations, the manipulation, and flip the board completely. But not loudly. Not publicly. Quietly. Deliberately. Just like Arthur would have. The first step was paperwork. I created a separate trust fund, not for the family, but for future maintenance of both properties, the cabin and the seaside house. I named it the Reynolds Legacy Fund. The catch? It could only be accessed by me or a named successor I appointed in writing. No more open doors, no more shared resources. Second, I rewrote my will. I named 2 of my closest friends as executors. I left nothing to my extended family. Then I went one step further. I scheduled a public listing of the seaside house. Not on Airbnb, but as a long-term luxury rental marketed toward out-of-state executives and filmmakers looking for a retreat. I partnered with a private agency handling VIP clients. Discreet. High-paying. Minimal visibility. Chloe wouldn't be able to find the address even if she tried. And just to put a bow on it, I purchased the adjoining lot to the cabin, a piece of forest land that had gone up for sale after a nearby development failed. No intention of building. I just wanted the buffer. It cost a chunk of the trust, but it was worth it. Now, no one could build near me without my permission. It was the beginning of my own quiet empire, not built from revenge alone, but from self-respect. From drawing boundaries in concrete and property lines. From turning the chaos they dumped on me into fuel. But I wasn't done. Because the next family holiday was around the corner. And I had one final play to make. One that would burn just hot enough to leave a mark, without ever lighting a match. Memorial Day weekend. That's when it happened. The weather was crisp and blue-skied, that perfect coastal spring air that makes you want to stand barefoot in the grass with coffee in hand. I was already at the seaside house, finishing some light landscaping before the new long-term tenants arrived. A film producer from San Francisco had signed a 6-month rental, sight unseen, for nearly $14,000 a month. It covered all the taxes, renovations, and then some. I was wearing an old flannel, dirt on my hands, music playing low from my truck. It was peaceful, the kind of morning you memorize just in case you need to pull it up later. Then I saw them. 2 cars pulled up along the gravel side road outside the gated drive, one I'd installed 6 weeks prior. Motion-triggered cameras, stone pillars, automated gate, keypad, the whole setup. It was Chloe in the lead car, of course. Her husband, Kevin, in tow, their kids in the back, faces pressed to the window. Ethan's SUV rolled in behind them. I recognized it instantly. They didn't see me right away. I stayed by the hedge behind the small trellis Arthur had built decades ago. They got out, stretched, looking around like tourists stepping into a brochure. Chloe pulled out her phone, probably looking for the keypad, while Kevin popped the trunk, ready to unload. It hit me then just how confidently they moved. Like this was owed to them. Like their presence alone justified everything. Chloe turned toward the gate and called out, "Daniel." I didn't move. She shouted again, "Daniel. Come on. The gate's not opening." Ethan walked over to the keypad and started poking buttons. After about a minute, I stepped out from the trellis walkway and crossed the grass toward them. Chloe lit up. "There you are. You didn't say this place had been updated. It's gorgeous." Ethan gave a sheepish wave. "We figured since you hadn't said anything, maybe a family weekend wouldn't be too much to ask." "You figured wrong," I said flatly. They blinked. Chloe laughed. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. The kids need to stretch. We brought food. It'll just be the weekend. We'll be gone Monday. You're not staying here, I said calmly. You're not even coming in. Ethan frowned. Is this about Thanksgiving again? You're still holding on to that? This isn't about Thanksgiving, I replied. It's about everything. And it ends today. Chloe folded her arms. Daniel, it's a family house. Uncle Arthur wouldn't have wanted you to just hoard it. I held up my hand. Uncle Arthur left me this house. Specifically. In writing. You all received copies of the will. If you're still confused, I'm happy to forward it again. Chloe's lips tightened. We just assumed you'd do the right thing. I shrugged. I did. I legally locked this property down and listed it with a private agency. It's currently under lease to a high-profile tenant. You're trespassing, and you're being recorded. Kevin finally spoke. Are you serious? Ethan stepped forward. Dan, come on. Just let us in. You can be mad later. That's when the gate keypad made a click and the intercom buzzed. A voice crackled through. Hey, is this the Reynolds property? This is Mike from Vanguard Security. We've got a ping from the perimeter camera, and the owner said to call in. I pressed the button. This is Daniel. It's my family. They were just leaving. A pause. Copy that. Want us to come up just in case? I looked at Chloe. She had gone pale. No need, I replied. They're already on their way out. I turned back to the group. You don't belong here. And before you ask, no, you're not getting access to the cabin either. I bought the adjoining land. I fenced the trails. I registered the easements. Everything is locked down. There is no more dropping by. There is no more family getaway. Chloe's voice cracked. You can't just cut everyone off. You already did that, I said. When you turned my boundaries into jokes. When you taught your kids that my home was a playground. When you used guilt like a debit card with no limit. Ethan tried again. So what? You're just out. I'm free, I said. He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw it, realization. Not just that I meant it, but that there was nothing they could do. No argument, no manipulation, no twisting of the family narrative. It was done. I nodded toward the road. Goodbye, Chloe. Her eyes flashed. Anger, confusion, maybe even a flicker of guilt. But she said nothing. She turned, barked at Kevin to grab the kids, and slammed her car door so hard it echoed. Ethan lingered a second longer. This doesn't feel right. I looked him in the eye. It's not supposed to. That's how growth feels when you've never done it. He opened his mouth but said nothing. Just turned and walked to his car. The engine started. Gravel crunched. Within 2 minutes, they were gone. No fireworks, no screaming, no threats of lawsuits. Just gone. I stood there for a long time, watching the dust settle, breathing in the ocean wind and the smell of pine. My phone buzzed once. An alert from the security system, noting that the vehicles had exited the perimeter. I smiled. Later that evening, I opened my laptop and wrote one final email to the extended family group chat. It was short. Dear family, effective immediately, I'm stepping back from all family gatherings, group decisions, and inherited expectations. My properties are no longer available for use. I won't be replying to messages requesting otherwise. If you reach out, please know that silence is not an invitation. It's a boundary. Wishing you all peace, Daniel. I clicked send, closed the laptop, and poured myself a drink. There were no angry replies, no protests. Just silence. And that was how I knew it worked. They didn't just lose access to a house. They lost access to me. And I had finally reclaimed myself from a lifetime of being the easy one, the quiet one, the one who never made waves. Not anymore. Now the waves were mine. That silence wasn't empty, it was full of possibilities. It was the sound of me finally choosing myself. What boundaries have you had to draw to reclaim your peace?